Hello, this is Justin from Sure Adventures.
Hey, Justin.
Hi. First of all, thank you guys for all you've done. Can't believe how much you guys have done in 4 days. Thank you for all your work. And thanks for trying to make this still possible for us to again, at Sure Adventures, we run out of Lake Yellowstone, do kayak and hiking tours. I was on the call with Jackson, and you guys were talking about how vans and buses will be able to travel in there without the reservation system, if I heard it right. And for some of the outfitters, a lot of our guests meet in the park, and wondering if they'll have that same kind of path to get in, like if they're meeting us at Lake Yellowstone or on a hiking tour. That's the main question, because without knowing that, I think a lot of outfitters can say this, we're getting lots of cancellations even in August now, in the last 24 hours, because people just aren't sure what's going on. Obviously, it's only been 4 days. And just trying to figure out what we can tell our guests, if you have any information on that. And my last question on that is, if they go in once and they get that free pass, can they travel throughout the week and to go back in and out of the park? I just don't know if you guys have had time to even figure that part out yet. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So as we've communicated with the communities, as you know, we had similar questions from Cody in West Yellowstone in our multiple conversations. First of all, for those of you that don't know, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory, but you can't put a full. We get 1 million people per month in the summer months in Yellowstone, with less than 200 miles less available for visitors. We can't cram normal daily visitation into half the park. And what we don't want to do, so we're working through solutions to try to figure out how to control the visitation into 3 loops without overwhelming the infrastructure and staffing on the south end. The reservation systems and options that we're looking at have a bypass that would be built in for CUAs. So if you are, and I'll get to your question in a second, Sean, outside the park coming in with a van of people to go look at wildlife or whatever, that's an easy one. You'll be able to come in. There will not be a reservation required for you. I need to think about that scenario you just presented, because that's not one of the things that we've talked about. But let us incorporate that into the planning. I'm really glad that you brought that up and see. And I don't know, we'll try to figure out and recommunicate with you all how many of you are in that situation versus the people you bring in, you originate outside the park and you all come in at once. That's a little bit of a complication, but we'll see what we can do to work through it. And we also understand the need to communicate what we're doing so we can prevent you all from getting business off the, people canceling their reservations and their business. We understand how important that is, and we understand how important it is for you to have some predictability in your business operations. So thanks for those thoughts, Sean, and we'll get back to you on that.
Hi. Hey,
hi, Terry Sturge. I got a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you say your name? Can you say your name again?
Yeah, Terry Sturge, Yellowstone Mountain Guides.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah. So, question on what are your thoughts on Dunraven as far as passage for concessionaires, CUA holders to get over to Slough Creek?
Well, you're not. So, for right now, what I call the flood recovery zone, which is the north end of the park, that's not going to be passable. So, for this first phase of reopening the southern loop, there will not be access beyond Canyon North or beyond Norris North. Once we resume visitation in the southern loop, and we need to figure out some wastewater system issues, and we need to clear some mudslides off at Dunraven, it is possible that loop from Canyon to Tower to Mammoth to Norris could reopen. We're assessing the damage on the road to Lamar. So whether or not people can get to Slough Creek or not, that'll be later. That will not be something that happens quickly.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
But I do understand that that is a critical place, and as long as the road, we've got to be careful there, as we know you can't get from like Tower to beyond like Soda Butte. And so what we've got to be careful of if we were to open that, and this is downstream, is not having so much traffic in that corridor, not having a way to turn them around, because they're not going to be able to go through like normal, if that makes sense. So we'll work on that. That's not going to be something that happens super quickly, but it is possible later in the summer, depending on how things go.
So, as an outfitter with trips in there in late July, August, it's still possible, is what you're saying.
Well, it's super possible for you to be on the southern loop. Question will be, and then I think what would happen is the second thing that would be opened, if we did it, would be Canyon to over Dunraven to Tower, and then you would not be able to go out to Lamar, but you could come on that small kind of mini northern loop around to Mammoth and down to Norris. But we've got some work to do. We're gonna keep this northern end cleared for a bit until we can kind of figure out exactly what we're gonna do, and we will open as we can, and we'll do the best job we can communicating that as far in advance as possible.
Okay, just to clarify, I'm a stock outfitter, so my question was just related to stock access. Also on the Lamar, obviously we're not going to be able to get over to the Soda Butte trailhead, it sounds like. So will it still be possible to go via Pelican Valley?
Yeah, I think so. I need to talk to the backcountry team. I know Kevin's on. I think that's possible. And I also think it's possible if the road's not severely damaged and we can come up with a plan where we could make some allowances for CUAs to go ahead and use that parking area at Soda Butte to go into Lamar from that side. I don't know exactly the extent of the damage or the work that might need to occur, say, between Tower and Soda Butte. We know there's damage between Soda Butte and Cook City. We've got to analyze that section of road. So let us get a better inventory of what's going on the backcountry front, the trail, the condition of the trails, the condition of the bridges, and then we'll do everything possible to get you access to the stock trailheads, even if regular visitors may not have that same access. But let us kind of think through that. I mean, we're only going into day 4, so let us kind of think through that. It's a good thing for us to think about for you.
Hey there. This is Dave Ellerstein with Jackson. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for all you guys are doing. We really appreciate it. We know you're in a super tough spot. Couple questions for you. One is we operate motorized boating trips on Lewis Lake and Yellowstone Lake. This is kind of prime season for that for us right now. And so I want to know, A, if you had any rough timeline on when we might be able to get back in the southern entrance, at least get as far as Lewis Lake. Right now we're experiencing a flood of cancellations, both for the short term and the long term. So clearly the sooner we could at least get to Lewis Lake, the better. My second question is, because we're getting this flood of cancellations, both for short term and all the way, like somebody previously said, all the way out to August, are there any federal disaster relief dollars that are going to be available for businesses that are being impacted by the closure of Yellowstone?
I don't know the answer to the last question. I know the FEMA director's coming out. I know the governor of Montana has declared an emergency. That's a bit separated from Yellowstone itself. So through Small Business Administration, through other avenues, through FEMA, we'll see what's available as this progresses. And that would have to be something likely driven by the communities that are most affected and the states and counties and that kind of thing. So that part I can't answer definitively for you at this point. On the question about access to Lewis and Yellowstone Lake, our goal is still to try to open up that southern loop to early next week. And so that would include the marinas at Bridge Bay and the ability to launch on Lewis. So, I know I recognize the fact that people are canceling left and right, and I want to give a level of certainty to people across the country through our media that the southern loop's open as soon as we can get it open. We intend to keep it open throughout the summer and try to dissuade people from canceling on you all, but we've got to work through. What I also don't want is to overwhelm that southern loop and then have to close it again, in mid-July or something like that. So I mentioned some of the damage on the southern loop we're looking at. As long as we can get that repaired quickly, our goal is to still get that open by early next week, probably Tuesday. I'm not sure yet. So if there's reporters on this call, that's not a definitive date yet. But we're working through it, and we'll get it communicated as quickly as we can.
Thank you very much. So Tuesday, potentially something like that. And if our guests are with us in a CUA trip, they'll be able to get in. They won't need to go through some reservation process.
Yeah. And we'll work on Sean's question from earlier about people that need to meet in the park and that kind of thing. And what that might mean for you, I'm just thinking as he's asked that question a little while ago, is you may need to give them something that says that they're with you that day, Sean. So if you think about you need to meet the kayakers at the lake, maybe you can give them some type of receipt or something that says that they're in a commercial use tour. I'm building this while I'm flying it, so I got to think through it a little bit. That could be a way. So they would present that, hey, they're with your company. They're going to meet you for kayaking trip, and it's on that date, and then they could get through to the entrance station. So maybe something like that could be a solution.
Hi, my name is Todd. I'm with Breakwater Expeditions.
Hey, Todd.
Hi, hello?
Go ahead, Todd.
Can you hear me?
Todd,
Yeah.
you go first.
Yeah, just quick question here. So you're mentioning the 21st potentially here. We just do backpacking trips, and actually most of my trips are in the northern part of the park, which is unfortunate. But I actually have a trip starting on the 21st in the sense of another trip with a client and so forth. Would the backcountry be open for us to do, a 3-night backpacking trip? And if so, are we able to start changing our reservation locations on the rec.gov or whatever, on the backcountry stuff? And are we able to start changing, I have June, July, and August trips, and most of them are in that hell roaring area and so forth. Are we able to start adjusting our routes for the parts that might be more accessible when the park opens? And so
you're not going to be able to access the northern, the backcountry from the roads in the northern part of the park anytime. Right. So yeah. I don't know if you're talking about coming in from the other side or how you're planning on accessing that. I can't give you a good definitive timeline on that. I can tell you Blacktail Cabin was swept away, Lower Blacktail. We flew Hellroyne. That looks like it's still intact. The bridge has been impacted. I think the cables are gone. So we're going to need to do some damage assessments, like I said, on the trails and bridges in the backcountry before we reopen those trailheads. Sure. If you come in from the other side, if you come in from the Forest Service side or something like that, I would defer to Kevin as he gets through evaluation of his side, whether or not we could open up some, and when we could open up some of the backcountry in the north that might be accessible from other areas.
I guess going back to on the 21st, so to speak, am I able to start operating backcountry trips again in the backcountry? And that would be in the lower. I'd have to create a new route down south. Is that? Are we opening the backcountry? I guess ultimately.
Yeah. So the answer to that question is maybe certain sections, and we'll communicate that. So when I talk about opening Tuesday on the lower loop, I'm talking about the road system.
Okay.
There are a good group of folks that are and we're going to fly some more areas. We want to make sure that the backcountries are safe to open up, and we will probably open up sections of the backcountry at a time, and we'll do our best to communicate that. And that'll be dependent upon what the condition of the trails are. I know Kevin and his folks have had a lot of people already out on the trails to see what the damage is. So there might need to be modifications in regards to reservations and things like that. We'll work with you to try to, if a site that you wanted to go to, a certain part of the park is unavailable because it's damaged or not open, is there a way we could divert you to someplace else? Remember how we're not too far into this, so some of these details we haven't worked through, but we've got good work going, and we will communicate as quickly as we can on what that opening schedule can look like for the backcountry.
Okay, thank you.
Denise
from Big Sky Adventures and Tours.
Hi there.
Hi. Yeah, thanks again for having the call. And I just want to say, I'm based in Big Sky along with numerous other companies that are based here in Big Sky. And we go mostly through the West Gate. And so I'm pleased to hear that hopefully we'll be able to do that on Tuesday. And my question is, the backcountry in the northwest corner section, I understand you're checking bridges and things like that. But in terms of hiking, there are several trails that look like they have virtually no impact. And I'm hoping that you could open that section of the backcountry sooner than later. And just as sort of a whatever on the Bighorn Pass trailhead, a number of years ago, that bridge was washed out, and it was several years before it was replaced. And hiking was still allowed to be in there. So just wanted to point that out. That trail is not accessible right now, but other trails in that section are. So I would like to ask you to open that sooner than later.
Yeah, so you're talking about primarily trailheads off of 191?
Correct.
Yeah, and we will. So let us get a little more organized on the backcountry front. And Kevin's on here. I don't know if Kevin, if there's anything that you want to talk about on the backcountry as far as some of the things you're looking at or doing, feel free. But Denise, we will get those open as quickly as possible. And, we all know just because bridges are gone doesn't mean you can't ford rivers. So, we want to make sure we're cautious around the extremely high water that we have right now. But we will get those open as quickly as we can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Hey,
Cam.
Go ahead.
Kevin Dooley here.
Yeah, go ahead,
Michael,
Kevin.
are you on? Michael, is that you?
Yeah, why don't you start off?
Okay. I'm receiving a lot of texts, and that's fine, and I'm welcome. You're welcome to give me a call following the meeting as well. But as Cam said, we're in the beginning stages of this, and where life safety, being sure folks were out of the backcountry was paramount or primary duties, and now we've done some flights to look at some areas, but they were in coordination with obviously life safety concerns. So we were able to evaluate some of the trails, brief sections of trails that were a part of those flights as well. We have seen significant damage. So while we may be able to, as Cam spoke about earlier, access certain trailheads as time allows after they're evaluated, bridges, etc., we may get to those trailheads. However, seeing what I have seen in the brief segments, the Lamar River Trail and Miller Creek Trails, for instance, significant trail and bridge slides, trails missing, slumpy, 3U1, folks are familiar with 3U1, 3U2, unprecedented trail damage and slumping and missing trail, etc., as you can imagine, Lower Miller Creek. All the areas I've flown or have had limited access to, there is significant damage. As we said, even the upper Hellroing Stock Bridge needs to be evaluated. As Cam mentioned earlier, we have folks coming in to evaluate these before we even use them to get ahead of folks. And I know everyone wants to get out and help. We really appreciate that. We want to get going as soon as possible.
so you guys can get back to business. However, the reason we shut down the park as well is our span of control and being able to account for folks in the backcountry, eliminate the possibility for injury or who might be out there. So just bear with us. Even though we may be able to get to the trailheads, there is significant damage. Even at Slough Creek, bridges are out. Depending on how deep these washes are where bridges once stood, the amount of work to allow for a deep cut, for instance, for stock, non-wagon, just stock, to cross. And then our crossings, Cass Creek, all-time high. Normally I'm in there today. I'm not going in today. My memories pop up on Facebook. Here's where you were a year ago. I'm not there today. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Michael speak to it.
And just a little info for the south end of the park. We have crews out working and looking at trails. They started a couple days ago, and so we're trying to get those assessments made as quickly as we can so that we can open those as soon as conditions allow.
All right, Virginia. Thanks, Michael and Kevin. Or Darren. Virginia or Darren?
Yeah, this is Darren. I'm with Night Photography Workshop. Sorry to hear about everything that's going on, and we really appreciate all the things you're doing to ensure everybody's safety. Just a quick question. If and when the Southern Loop is open to visitors again, is it safe to assume that the lake lot or the lake hotel and cabins will be open as well for our guests?
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier. We can't put half the visit or the full level of visitation in half the park. We're looking at what the appropriate constraints that we need to put on day use entering the park from the gateways at west, south, and east, and what the appropriate amount of overnight accommodations are to have a balance in there. And so it's likely not going to be 100% overnight accommodations open. We are working with Xanterra to try to figure out what that plan looks like. And we should be able, they will be able to answer that a little bit more in more detail here pretty soon, as far as exact dates and what available reservations are going to be honored and things like that. We will do our best to allow Xanterra to get back to a much higher level of occupancy. But once again, we can't have a free-for-all in the Southern Loop, or we're going to be having this call about the entire park being shut down. So we'll do our best to balance that out. I don't know exactly what that looks like. We have a very good plan, I think, that's coming together for that, but it's not ready yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious because we haven't heard anything about reservation cancellations. So yeah. I'm trying to stay optimistic with safety in mind. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a tough position too, right? Because just like the gateways that have bookings, they don't want to cancel until they know that the park's closed or whatever. So like Xanterra's canceling up to certain dates, and then if that date comes along, they'll cancel a little further out. But if they've got reservations, say in July or August, they're obviously not canceling those yet because we may be open and they may be able to honor those, if that makes sense. So we've got to get through this. Number one, can we open safely the Southern Loop? What can the loop hold? What's the mix of day use and overnight accommodations in the park? And we got to think about both of those. And remember the pressures that are coming in from the gateways, let more people in, and pressures from inside, let us have more accommodations and campgrounds opened. And so we've got to kind of figure out what's appropriate there. Thanks, Darren.
Yep, thanks.
Hi. Hi, Virginia here from Yellowstone Wildlife Profiles.
Hi, Virginia.
I have a couple, I guess they're not so much questions because at this point I realize you will probably have no answer to these. but maybe just things to consider that might help out our Gardner-based tour operators. I know Mammoth area, a lot is contingent on the wastewater treatment results, but maybe the possibility of allowing something like CUAs to camp in the Mammoth campground if we can't drive back and forth between Gardner and Mammoth, because a lot of us do have trips that are scheduled to operate out of Old Faithful, Canyon, et cetera, on the lower loop, but we are coming from Gardner, and just it's obviously not feasible for us to drive around from Gardner to enter through the Westgate every day. But if we could somehow base camp in the park, even like fairly dry camping, I know that would help us out a lot. And so like I said, I know you probably don't have any sort of answer for that right now, but just something kind of put a bug in your ear. And then also if the, oh, go ahead.
What company are you with, Virginia?
Primarily with Yellowstone Wildlife Profiles, but also Yellowstone Wild.
Okay. What was your other question?
And then also just if the park is looking for, I don't know if the park will be in any position to hire more people or even just needing volunteers to do things like assess backcountry trails. If you can reach out to the CUAs, I know we have a lot of displaced people who are hoping to stay in the area and ideally have work, but even if they had volunteer opportunities to like, hey, we need someone to hike this trail in a few weeks and see if it's still okay. You know, obviously we have people that are trained in the park and know the backcountry and know this area, know how to travel safely, even if there's bridges out. That would give our folks a big opportunity to stay busy while we're trying to stay afloat. So just some things to consider.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Actually, I like your idea of the base camp. That maybe let me think through that a little bit. I was thinking, you know, the Mammoth campground, we had to bypass the wastewater, and so there's no the bathrooms at Mammoth aren't going to be working. Dry camping is possible. We need to look at Norris campground because we have that closed for the year anyway. I don't know if that's something we could turn into a camp for, you know, Gardner CUAs that could base out of that. I like. Let me put some thought into that, and don't give up. Don't give up hope on what we're going to be able to do, and maybe some level of access. But I don't want to set expectations,
right,
and then not deliver. So we're going to work as hard as we can to connect Mammoth to Gardner as quickly as we possibly can. But that could be something we can work on for any of you that might think that's a good idea, to base out of Norris or something like that. We're likely not going to open our campgrounds to the public for the foreseeable future, even on the Southern Loop. We'll probably allow Xanterra to open some of the campgrounds they manage, but the Park Service campgrounds might be available for some ideas like this. So thanks for that, Virginia.
Thank you. That would help us out a lot.
Hey, this is Mike from Putney Student Travel.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So we're actually based out of Vermont. Hopefully this is pretty straightforward. We've been bringing student groups to the park for a number of years, typically based out of Gardner, coming in the north entrance. We're actually able in the last 2 days to shift our reservations to West Yellowstone and stay there. And our plan from like June 3rd to 6th is to just do day trips, hopefully through the west entrance. You know, as far as we can get for some light hiking, you know, no overnights in the park, just some exploration, some photography, things like that. Does it sound pretty reasonable that we would be able to do that? We'd have 3 passenger vans just for day trips through the west entrance.
Are you a CUA holder at the park?
We are, yes.
Yeah, then as long as we open the Southern Loop, you should be fine.
Okay. So it's just contingent on that Southern Loop opening, and it sounds like you're hoping to hopefully do that within the next week.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows that if we open the Southern Loop and it's a complete free-for-all and we're unable to control the amount of visitation traffic that we have, we will pull back day use, but we'll still likely allow CUAs to operate in the park. So we'd kind of almost go to a winter use model to some degree where you can only come in if you're with a guided tour. So That's kind of a backup plan in case like everything goes to hell on the Southern Loop. But we'll do everything possible to continue to allow you all to have access insofar as it's safe to do so. Taylor?
Can you hear me? This is Adam Brubeck with Titan Nature.
Hey there.
Yeah, I have a question about when you do open. Are you going to do it like you do typically at the beginning of every year? Have the road open at 8 a.m. or is it just going to be open that day? And that way we can plan that first day that not everybody's trying to get in at 8 a.m. or whenever.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll give you, once we decide the date and that we feel the infrastructure is safe post visitation. Like I said, we're targeting early next week, probably Tuesday right now, unless something happens, and we will communicate via press release what the opening date, what the plan is, and also what the time would be that you could enter.
Hi, Superintendent. Taylor Phillips here with Eco Tour Adventures.
Hey, Taylor.
Hey, for one, just thank you so much. Your leadership, your team's leadership is admirable, and you guys are working well with what you have. And thanks so much for considering, kind of the business community that relies on the park, and just a great example of how we are partners. So, thanks for all your efforts.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that.
Hi, Superintendent Sholly. This is Kara McGarry.
Hi, Kara.
To carry on from what Virginia had so beautifully suggested, I like the idea of Norris or Mammoth. Would it be possible for some of us kind of Gardner Northern Range types of CUA holders to maybe get together and have a meeting in the future sometime to talk about options that might work well for our unique conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. And Zach can help get the Gardner CUA group together, and we can talk some more, and especially about some of these other options and ideas that you guys have about how we can alleviate some of these strains.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kara.
Hello. This is Trevor Bloom with Guides Jackson Hole. First off, thank you for this. You're doing an amazing job with this significant. Thank you so much.
Hello,
this is Susie with Yellowstone.
Hello.
Where are you?
Good. I have two questions, please. Yellowstone Llamas does mostly day hikes in the northwest corner, but also once in a while pack trips. Is it reasonable to assume that we will be able to do our pack trips in it?
My phone's going dead on this meeting, and wherever you put them.
I missed the last part of your question because someone was off mute. I can't tell you that right now. I can't tell you what the future holds for the northern ring. I do think a lot of the southern end and the west end of the park will be open once we get through what we talked about earlier and Michael and Kevin outlined. But just like the road infrastructure in the northern end was heavily impacted, the backcountry infrastructure was heavily impacted on the northern end also. So we will do what we can as quickly as possible, but I would especially in the near term, I would suggest there's not going to be a lot of backcountry access to the northern end of Yellowstone. I've got a hard stop in 9 minutes, so we've got a lot of questions. Let's try to get through these. I've got somebody on here from Black Mountain.
Hi there, it's Sandy Lee. Cam, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey Sandy, how are you?
I'm good. I was just wondering, of course, from Kevin and everybody, we don't have answers now because, of course, we act through Slough Creek, and we were telling all our people we were hoping we could just go in through West and be open to the Buffalo Ranch. But we also have our Forest Service camps north of Silvertip and north of Buffalo Fork. So just keeping that in mind, if when they go through this, when that's open from the north end of the park back in from the forest, even if you can't come in from the Slough Creek campground, we could go over the Forest Hills. So if they kind of just keep that in mind when they find out, like if you can go from Silvertip to the Third Meadow, we have another way to access it. So
yeah, and I know
a different viewpoint.
Yeah, and I actually, I mean, Kevin can tell me if I'm wrong, but that may be a lot more feasible in certain areas than like trying to come in from the park side. So we'll keep that in mind, Sandy, and make sure that if something's passable from the other side, that you all know it and can access, even if it's not necessarily from Slough Creek or trailheads within the park in the north side. Thanks, so.
Hi, this is Tracy with Discovery Yellowstone Tours. Am I live?
Yep. Hi, Tracy.
Oh, great. Hi, Cam. We are now a commercial tour provider running all size vehicles up to large buses. What is our allowance to get into the park?
As long as, so we're doing inspections on the Southern Loop. Southern Loop opens, you're a CUA holder, and we don't determine that there's a need for weight restrictions. You should be able to get in on with whatever size vehicle you want to come in on.
Okay, even smaller because we're a total commercial provider, no CUA any longer. We're paying the commercial rates?
Yeah, if you're in a large bus, we looked into this yesterday. It's going to be a nightmare for me to try to cancel 50% of the motor coach tours. So
we're smaller than.
Yeah, so if it's commercial, we're going to let it in for now. Once again, we're going to need to monitor how that goes. And CUA holders and the commercial bus operators at this point would not be subject to any restraints for entrance.
What about our SUVs and our vans? Same thing.
You're not a CUA holder?
Not any longer.
And you're not a motor coach operator?
We are not motor coaches, but large 26,500 GVW buses. So we're paying higher fees now, commercial fees to get.
Yeah, it's not really about the fees. It's about the volume.
Right. Yeah, but that's doing the program than the CUA.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you connect with Zach or Julie and work, and we can see what we can work out once we kind of get this plan more formalized. We'll do what we can. I just got to be careful.
I didn't hear what you just said.
Get with Zach or Julie from the Park Service here, and they can kind of work through some scenarios with you, and see. We'll see what we can do once we get this plan more formalized.
And Cam, we have time for about one more question.
Okay. Zach, can you contact her and have a discussion?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
Hello,
keep getting muted. Not hearing what you're saying.
I don't know for sure. So I'll have some staff follow up with you to determine whether that's possible or not. We'll do what we can.
We have hundreds of tours booked, so it's kind of critical.
You're not the only one, lady.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. As a guide, we need to be able to get in the park like everyone else. So hopefully.
Yeah, I understand that. We also need to make sure we've got a clear plan on who can come into the park, or there's not going to be a park to come into. So I've got to be careful on what we're saying yes and no to, and make sure that it's clearly delineated who's allowable to come in. And I don't know what category you fit into, so we will. Someone will follow up with you or follow up with our team here, and we'll try to work something out.
What office would we call?
Zach, can you maybe put in the chat something, your name and number?
Yep, I've got it. I'll put it in the chat.
Juan?
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Chip Staley, Rockin' HK Outfitters.
Hey, Chip.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hey, I was wondering, with the improvements to the Stagecoach Road out of Mammoth up to Gardner, is the intention, once that road gets improved, for us as stock outfitters to be able to use that road?
My goal is to get the best possible access from Gardner to Mammoth we can, as quickly as possible. As you probably know, that road is like from 1918 or even earlier, and it was not designed for modern day vehicle traffic. So I can't answer your question right now. We have engineers looking at what can be done to safely hold traffic. We're doing these initial improvements first, and then we've got a plan to do a more substantial improvement of the road. And I will do everything possible to make that passable. And if we get to a point where we can bring people up from Gardner, the CUAs and our partners will be in the loop on when that can happen and if it can happen.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. All right, one more. Tyler or Sarah?
Yes, this is Sarah with Big Sky Adventures and Tours. It sounds like there has been some Gateway specific phone calls that have happened, but the Big Sky tour operators have not been invited to participate. Will there be any future Gateway community specific phone calls? And if so, how can we be part of those?
Talk to your chamber. We're happy to have a conversation with Big Sky.
Thank you.
Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler with Good Trip Adventures. A real quick question about the Bacon Rind. A lot of our tours are happening out of Gardner and areas as well. Could we reroute some of our day hikes to that area? Is it open? I'm just curious about that.
I missed where you're trying to reroute to.
To the northwest along the highway, down past Gallatin Canyon. That section that's in the park, but not through the entrances.
Off of 191.
Yeah, is that open? Can we do day hikes? What's the status on that?
Right now it's closed.
Okay.
I think we had a conversation earlier. We'll try to get it open as quickly as we can. That might be one of those areas that we can get open sooner than others. But give us some time here to kind of get things figured out. We haven't done the assessments that are necessary. Remember how big this park is. So we'll get back to you with the schedule and figure out what sections of the backcountry can reopen and when.
No worries. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks, Tyler. All right. So I would suggest that there's a couple more questions here. Follow up with Kevin Dooley if you have a question that maybe he can answer. If you're a backcountry outfitter, he's probably the best person for the northern end to connect with. I would encourage you to write into Zach Alley or Julie Buback or one of those folks to get any other questions that you have. I'm happy to have another one of these calls. We got them stacked back to back with different groups and communities. So we can set up another one of these and we'll try to do that so we can get, as we get further along in this planning, we can give you better and more detailed answers. Thanks for what you're doing, and I understand the difficult situation and the unpredictable situation so many of you are in, and also how reliant you are on your tours and visitors for your own livelihoods. We were going to do everything we possibly can to accommodate whatever we can, and do it in a way that's as organized and expeditious and safe as possible. So we'll circle back with you, but thanks again for everything, and we'll be back in touch. Thanks, Stephanie.
And this concludes our meeting.
Thank you.